Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's got to be evening somewhere, right? Welcome to 3.5 Plus with iFaqir. We are continuing this series of voices from beyond District 1, as I like to put it. And in case anyone hasn't gotten the reference, I am referring to that idea expressed in the Hunger Games novels, where the world is structured in a way where some people are fortunate enough to live in District 1 and everyone else is just struggling to either get in there or have that discussion. uh, that idea. And even before COVID, we were starting to have this discussion. I at least was. People would not voice it. I know a lot of people were thinking about it, that the world is structured pretty much in that form already. And a lot of our life histories are that way. So, having said that, we are starting out from Pakistan, starting out gathering these ideas. The idea is not to limit ourselves to either Pakistan or the spaces I am talking about, but to present a worldview from beyond District 1, whether it is Pakistan or globally. So, in that regard, we just did a show with Aslam Kakar, a Pashtun intellectual based in New Jersey. And now I am, as they say, going back to my roots. And today I have with me Danish Kazi, prominent, he's an activist, blogger, thinker, intellectual. And in this day and age, we go from saying public intellectual to saying uh, vlogger, TikToker. We're too old
No,
to
I
be.
don't do TikToks are only in London nowadays. I'm a
Anyway, I actually haven't even gotten very good with Instagram, right? So I'm still, and to tell our audience, this show is going out on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube live on under the handle iFaqir. The iFaqir handle has been around for quite a while. Just off the air, we were talking to Danish Bhai here about how we've been at this since media, lost some of its stiffness, and we started with blogging and have been moving along. Then you again, Danish Bhai, you are now pretty senior in this uh, space. And but again, we have, like, I think half a generation's difference coming out of where we are both from Karachi, and we both, and this is where we get into our topic matter, we both very self-consciously identify, like, about 10 to, and I'll ask you this question about population, about 10 to 15, 20 million people in Pakistan who still identify as Muhajir. Now, in the West, the idea of being of immigrant stock, of being an immigrant, is, in fact, I fight back in the US about the overuse of the word immigrant, because we are naturalized citizens here, right? We are citizens. But in Pakistan, we have this population of people who moved to what is now Pakistan from other parts of the erstwhile British Indian Empire. And these folks, as a community, identify themselves as Muhajir. The word in Urdu and Arabic and Persian means immigrant. Someone who does a hijrat, moves permanently from one place to the other. There was, in the early days of Pakistan, also the use of the word panahgir, which again is Urdu, Persian, Arabic for refugee. Now, very consciously,
you've gone on mute.
my mic went off. And we have that identity. So, without much ado, I don't want to take up even more time. First of all, Danish Bhai, how are you doing? And I believe you are based in the UAE. And could you give us a little bit of background? I know you are an active member of the IBA Alumni Association. You have a business degree. You came out of Karachi. You moved back and forth between Pakistan and what I like to think of as Pakistan and India's annexee out in the UAE. We have a common, back room in the UAE. So tell us about that experience.
So basically, after graduating from IBA Karachi back in 2002, and I've done my engineering as well back in 2000. I've been employed with companies like Shell, British Tobacco. Shell got me hired directly from my business school. One of the lucky few got campus hired. I've worked with BAT, British Tobacco. Then I've worked with companies like AIG. I'm sure you've heard about them in US. I was employed with them for 4 5 years. Then I've worked with Swiss Insurance, Zurich Insurance as well. So now mostly I'm working for a financial sector company here, large insurance companies here, and my main job is to risk management, product development, partnership development.
Right.
Yes, I am attached with IB as well. Right now, currently, I'm not the president. My tenure is concluded in December for UAE. I also did participate in the global alumni elections as well. I did not win that, but yes, I tried my best and quite active here. And even living here now since 2006, my heart beats for my city and my country and my community every day without stopping.
So interesting, you laid that out. And I wanted to lay that out also because a lot of people see you online. There's a background, just as a matter of relating, these things are important, right? And back in 2000, and I think up to that point, there were only one or two very prominent and uh, let's say this brutally, respected business schools in Pakistan. IBA was pretty much the main game in town. Now, of course, we have some very good other institutions coming up. Lums has started out as a business school and has gone on to do great things. It's a wonderful university. So let's get to that. You mentioned city, nation, country, community. City, country, community. We are all parts of these multiple circles. And the moment we raise the word Muhajir, this has always been a burr in people's hides for a long time. So let's see you lay that out. And I know a lot of us actually even say, why should we even be apologetic about it? But I know there are people within Pakistan, even people from our own community, who are not comfortable. The word does not sit comfortably with them. And then outside Pakistan, this word, this voice is not as prominent. We took a left turn at one point in Karachi, and there was an ethnic organization which later became a political party, and that has is often discussed as either an ethnic party or the main representative entity coming out of Karachi. Karachi's demographic has changed. So let's do this. Can you define what a Muhajir is? Why we still call ourselves Muhajir, or use that as our ethnic ethnonym, so to speak, right? And then we will get to issues of population and other issues.
See, it's very simple. Two main reasons. Like when you're migrating from India, we are from different parts of India, like you correctly mentioned. Some came from UP, some came from Bihar. My family is very distributed. My dadiyal is distributed between Meerut and Hyderabad Deccan. My father was born in Hyderabad Deccan. And on the contrary, my mother, my nana was born in Rampur. My nani was a Jat from Gurgaon. So it's a very, and my dada was born in Meerut, interestingly. So it's a very, so it's not a tribal thing. It was a spread out thing. People coming from Bombay, so but when you were coming to Pakistan, you were actually entering into big four tribes. One was Punjab, one was Sindh, Balochistan, and not at the time of partition, Balochistan was not part of Pakistan. And then you had KPK, Pashtuns. So there were four big tribes at that time. And it was always a problem that how do you make yourself position in those tribes, because those people, four tribes, have been living in those areas for ages. So suddenly you don't expect me to come there and start calling myself a Baloch or Sindhi, Pashtun or Pathan, because I did not migrate to call myself be called for that. I was migrated, my family migrated to be called like Pakistanis. Now, if you see, like you mentioned, there are 15, 20 million Muhajirs living in Pakistan or who call themselves Muhajirs. The actual number could be as high as 70 million. But the problem is that they are spread out in the country. And the number you are indicating is mostly coming from the south of Pakistan, which is in Hyderabad, Karachi and Hyderabad. And why we have been forced to call ourselves Muhajirs, because over a period of time, before Bhutto, it was a matter of pride, and after Bhutto, it was a matter of survival. I'll put it in simply that way. Because after that, when Bhutto imposed those quota systems, he systematically just covered everything which made us a superior community at the time. And he ensured, because his own people were far off, and no offense, we also wanted them to be at par, because the quota system, as some Sindhis claim, was imposed on us by Liaquat Ali Khan. And the Liaquat Ali Khan's intent was not nefarious. It was to the fact that he wanted to give an equal chance to the indigenous population to come up to speed and work together with us. Because we were in higher numbers when it comes to administration, education, all those things. But that was his intent, to bring them up. Bhutto's quota system was not with the intention to equate things. His intention was to put us further to the wall, and that is what happened. So that's the reason why you see that this quota system, which happened only in Sindh, you see, Sindh is the only province in the country where you have a Sindh urban and a Sindh rural demarcation, unlike any other province in the country. Though there are a lot of Mahajers, I think there are more Mahajers living in Punjab than Sindh right now. And that's why the Muhajirs in Punjab don't see a need to call themselves Muhajirs, because they are treated equally. When they go to government service, they go to army, they go to anywhere. No one would ask them that, where are you from? On the contrary, in Sindh, you have this domicile problem. And when you apply anywhere, you need to first prove which domicile you have, and then that domicile would help you then identify, are you a Muhajir or a Sindhi. I'll tell you a true story from where my journey for Muhajir nationalism began. So it was back in 92, 93, before I entered DJ college. And in fact, I got myself admitted in DJ college. And some people in my family wanted me. There were three friends. So we said, let's go and apply in the army. And, this army recruitment center of Shara Faisal, old one, right, next to Sea Breeze building. So we
Hmm.
went, and I applied on the form. They still ask you that, well, what is the place of birth for your grandfather? Strangely, right? And so I mentioned that my grandfather was born in Meerut. My father was born in Hyderabad. Till that time, in 93, I would have been like 15, 16 years old. I didn't know that my father actually was born in Hyderabad, Deccan. So the sergeant sitting there asks me this question that, so where was your grandfather born? I said he was born in India in Meerut. Oh, okay. Where was your father born? I was in Hyderabad. He said, are you sure? Which Hyderabad is this? I never knew till that time. And then I went there, I called my mother, I confirmed with her, and then she said, no, it's Hyderabad, Deccan. And I came back and I mentioned, I saw, it's Hyderabad, Deccan. And the first thing which came out at that time, it was that, oh, so you're son of a migrant or son of a Mahajir. And actually, that was a trigger, Shabad Bhai, actually, because from
Hmm.
there, I went directly to DJ college and I joined APMSO in 93. It was very tough
I
time.
see.
Yeah, so especially in Zone C, where we were all in, right? It was a very low numbers. Mohajir APMSO was not very strong there in DJ college, in our surroundings. And I went there and I started representing my community at that time. It was not for any power. You were getting beaten up. You were getting picked up. I got picked up
Hmm.
twice. Period. Every day when you enter the college, there would be person who would be specially checking you just because you are from APMSO, right? Your teachers will be very angry with you. Everyone was very aggressive with you, but still you did that because you wanted to represent something. You wanted to be a part of something which we all believed in. It's unfortunate what happened later. And at that time, even I thought of as a need that at that time we used to go around with these small booklets collecting chanda from Shaheen Complex building. You imagine in '93 when there was an operation going on, someone like me was stupid enough who was going bank to bank, knocking on the banks to collect donation for MQM at that time. So you can imagine what kind of psychological dent I would have gotten by listening to that one statement that I told myself when I was walking out that I didn't like the way that statement was given to me. And that was a trigger actually. I said, I could not, if I cannot bear it now, how would I bear it for the rest of my life once I'm back part of the ranks and file? So coming back to the point that some part is being driven from the fact that the way the laws have been structured, the quota systems have been structured, where we do not find a space because we are not a Punjabi, we're not a Sindhi, we're not Punjab, Bhutan. Those Sindhis would like us to be called Sindhi, but when time comes to give us something, they suddenly remember that we are from urban or Mahajirs, right? So that is the reason. I think if you ask me in one plain phrase, I think till the time I don't find my rights in this country as per the constitution, I will always be a Mahajir wherever till the time I need to be, because I may have not been able to achieve what I could have in my lifetime. As we go old, I don't want my kids to be facing the same problems after I'm gone. My posterity, not also not only my kids, kids of the whole community. So I think that's why it is. That's why when we go into offices, we go into. I work with multinational companies. I face this question. I faced nepotism because of this. I faced persecution because I lost my job for this. But twice I've lost my job for this, and
In
twice
Pakistan.
in Pakistan, and I had to leave one of the jobs. I had to go in exile because I refused to accept for a few things. I feel very vindicated when I see people crying about those things which we faced back in 2016, 17. Same things, and the same people who are crying nowadays were rejoicing this when it was happening to us. So especially when I can talk about myself, right? So the point is that every day, as I saw, and I realized one thing, if this can happen to someone like me who's so educated, so well connected, so vocal, uh, imagine what would be happening to that poor guy who's coming out of Orangi town, Karangi, Lakatabad. If I do not raise my voice, do not set the trend right, what hope can I leave for them? If I can lose my job after being such on high merit, and the only reason I lose my job is not on my performance, because I support a Muhajir cause. Twice it happened to my career. So and they were not small jobs; they were senior positions in Pakistan. So the funny part is that even just few months ago, someone approached me and said, "Why do please?" There was a very senior position as a deputy CEO in a company, and they said, "There's only one condition." I said, "What's that?" "Don't ask me to leave my politics. I don't give a damn, because that's something I live for actually now." So, the reason is, if people like us go quiet, people like us surrender, people like us give up, imagine what would happen to those people who are underprivileged, who are struggling right now, and they will be bulldozed, they will be bulldozed by those people who are in power. So we have to speak up for them, and that's the whole reason why this identity becomes all the more important, because this is how we are seen as. Whatever they may say, that we are Pakistanis or we are this, but they say that only on our face. But when it comes to that, they immediately will tell you, "Oh, so you are a Muhajir." Earlier, it used to sound like an abuse. Now, right.
No, actually, I wanted to jump in there with sort of my origin story and that whole discussion, but I'm also realizing that you used a lot of words that to an audience, even anyone outside Karachi in Pakistan, never mind our audiences outside Pakistan, might not be familiar with. I mean, words you use the word domicile, the word picked up. You didn't use the word badge, but you might have. You mentioned chanda, which has its own thing. Then operation. These are words that come from a certain experience and a certain history that doesn't go in. And if I may just do quick, a few seconds on each. A domicile, that's an English word which most English speakers don't often use. It's a very formal word for where you live. In Pakistan, when they put in what was originally, like you said, under Liaquat Ali Khan, an affirmative action program, which they call the quota, we now call the quota system, where there were certain, there was reservations in employment, in education, in all of that for the rural parts of Sindh, because suddenly Sindh had this large population in Karachi that was more
Hmm.
educated and all of that. So to help the rest of Sindh, via an affirmative action program, they were given some reservations. And again, there was a quota system, right? And the way that is administered, like when I got my admission into engineering school, and I forgot to ask you which engineering school you went to. I didn't quite
Uh,
know that about you.
I went to Sir Syed. I'm from the first.
SSUET, right?
Yeah.
SSUET, which is a private thing, and
I
again, our
got my admission in civil in NED, but
right.
I didn't want to do engineering. It was forced on me. So biomedical was something new which was coming up at that
Oh,
time.
you actually went into biomedical. I remember that whole story, and of course, our Indian audiences will. There's so many tangents here. Indian audiences will. A lot of them won't know that actually the Aligarh University, Aligarh Muslim University, Old Boys Association in Pakistan has gotten so organized. They actually endowed and started a university which they have named Sir Syed University. Originally, I think it was just the Sir Syed University of Engineering and Technology. Now, I think they've gone beyond that. I don't know what they are called officially now.
Originally, it was Aligarh Institute of Technology.
Right.
and where they were just doing diploma, and then a couple of years later, back in '94,
They were given a charter.
got a charter, and in '94 they started as a university as well.
Right, but they still called it SSUET, University of Engineering and Technology at that point. I think it's still called that, but like LUMS, it's they have started to do things beyond just engineering,
Uh,
right?
where I'm not in touch with them for some time. So
Anyway, so there is that thing. The way this was administered was that before you applied for a job or admission, especially in public institutions, you had to get what were known as, there was actually another concept as well, but there was a certificate of domicile you needed to get issued by
PRC.
permanent resident certificate, and it was a process. You had to get the PRC first, and then you got what was known as a certificate of domicile. Nowadays, in actually, you will notice this mentioned on places like Niador and all. Murtaza Solanki Sahib will mention that, I have a weak domicile. What he's talking about is that certificate, meaning that I come from a place in the country where we are not considered as strong. So there's that history. And as for
So,
my own, we all have. What was
whilst he's cribbing about the fact that his domicile is weaker in the whole country's
in
perspective,
the, again
I
later.
complain to his community that my domicile is weaker than in his perspective.
Right. No, but to give them credit, and coming back to the idea of the identity of Muhajir and whether it's accepted, there are people in that wider discussion who are more sympathetic to the cause, who actually talk, or even the people, right? Because as I was saying to you offline, there was a time right up to when I moved away from Pakistan in the mid 90s, when, uh, and that was actually part of the issue, right? When people came from the rest of British India to the parts that would become Pakistan and kept coming till about 1954 in large numbers. My father didn't move till rather late. They, a lot of them went to the Punjab, and a lot of them, but almost most of them gravitated to Karachi. Now, in the Punjab and other places, like Lahore was a big city, it was an established city. They took on the nature there. We have relatives, people from our communities that settled there. They have, as you said, been absorbed into the fabric. I mean, there are large cities, especially in southern Punjab, that are Mahajir dominated, but they don't call themselves Mahajir. So, to me, and this is where I slightly disagree with people like you, when you're, or maybe I'm trying to have another discussion, it's not a matter of who you were or where you came from. Muhajir has now become a socio-economic or social identity of a certain group of people.
No, no. Let me add that it is. Let's put it this way: people of Punjab embraced Muhajirs, okay, and they allowed them to be integrated with them. They did not created bifurcations, unlike in Sindh
See,
that
I
bifurcation.
I see it a little, I mean, not to disagree with you, but to add a layer, why that bifurcation happened, whether they see it or not, is also because in Lahore and all, there were larger cities and a system to get absorbed into. Karachi itself, we love the city, we love its history, but at
No,
that point was a very small town.
not all Muhajirs settled in Lahore. A lot of them
I
settled.
know. A lot of them, like I said, there's at least Bahawalpur or somewhere they say that even the mayor is usually someone of Mahajir stock.
Bhutan, Saiwal. You will find them
Sahiwal,
in Ahmedabad,
right.
you will find them in Jhang. A lot of
And
areas they
lots
have.
of, and in a lot of places they are a very large community, right? But they are absorbed. My point is, Karachi was such a small town. It was a wonderful town, important historically and everything, that the number of Muhajirs coming there overwhelmed the city, and they weren't becoming part of something running. They were building things anew, right? Karachi, in at that point, as my father used to quote, a New York Times journalist famously put it, that in 1947, Karachi was half as large as New York Cemetery and twice as quiet. It was a very nice, clean, quiet city, but the people that came there, they built their own communities. They
But
weren't
there's
becoming part of
but there's
something else.
why this migration to Karachi happened in these numbers. There's history to it,
There's a
and this
history.
thing you can listen to Abdullah Haroon, who was Dawn's owner. He himself said in one of the interviews, and you can check on the. I'm sure that interview is available on the net.
Archives available.
So GM Sayyed went with Abdullah Haroon to Aligarh and requested Muslims to migrate to Sindh because the non-Muslim population in Sindh was such overwhelming
All
that
right.
the to disequate that. So you know that the leagues of nation, the question is 27, 70% and or 27%. Now, for your interesting knowledge, what happened is at the time of partition, uh, Hindus in India, because they were Sindhis, right? Keep this in mind. Till now, there is no Sindh in India. And if you listen to the national anthem of India, they still remember Sindh. So what happened? A reverse migration started happening from Sindh in India back to Pakistani India, Sindh, because they wanted to unsettle the 27% and have more than 27% non-Muslim Sindhis in the Sindh so that they can demand their own area as per the charter. The reason why Muslims were brought in large numbers to disequate that equation, and if you see, Pakistan's first constitution only came into 1956
56.
because till that time Punjab got settled, KPK got settled. It was clear that the population of Muslims were 90% plus in those areas. It was only Sindh where that equation was not being met, and it was a balance line. With after this immense migration into Sindh, where our fathers, forefathers came in, they toppled the equation, and then suddenly what happened? By 1954, it was realized that they have now gone to 14%. Some equation they can never reach 27% again. That is where it was then decided, and now Sindh is a settled area, and we were all become parts and formally became part of Pakistan. That's why your constitution also came out in 1956. Now the significance of this is if our parents would not have come to Sindh, this 27% equation would not have been achieved, would not have been toppled. And if they would not have come, the interesting part is that 70% of the land of Sindh was owned by non-Muslim Sindhis.
Right.
41% directly, 30% under lien. If imagine these 27% Hindus would have demonstrated that they are in 27% in number in Sindh, and they would have decided as per the charter to go with India. They were owning these lands, and they were directly owning these lands, and some of these lands, including Karachi, would have become part of India. And the ironic part is, if you speak to a Sindhi, Hindu Sindhi, who lives in a good number in UAE, they will tell you that it was almost that they got a chance to bring, and they still miss it. That in India today, you have Gujarat, you have Punjab, everything, Maratha, everyone, but you don't have a Sindh in India right now, right?
Right.
So if you look at it, it's not that we posed ourselves here. We actually did a favor.
Right.
Otherwise,
There was
Sindhi,
dynamics. There was politics. There was dynamics.
no,
And
no,
then, of course, once there was a population,
these Sindhi landlords would still be slaves to those Indian dominated Maharajas or Rajas. We did a favor to them by coming in. Yeah, we could have settled in Lahore as well. But that's the reason why we all settled here. So we did a favor to them. It's
right?
not
So,
like
and there's all of these dynamics, right? There was the politics, and then later, of course, there was again migration out of Sindh to India because there's that whole discussion of Nehru wanted to prove that Pakistan wasn't viable, right? There was that as well. And my point is, once all of this settled, there was a dynamic in Karachi where the Muhajir population was so large that they were not basically getting absorbed into an existing culture. They were building their own. And today, Karachi has its own culture, especially the Muhajir
what
parts of Karachi.
what culture? Because Karachi,
Don't
Karachi
you
was
celebrate a Muhajir Culture Day every year? You got to be
very
celebrating something, man.
culture. Sir, see, the problem is the Parliament of Sindh, where we all claim that this big resolution was passed by James Sayyed, one vote, and they voted for Pakistan.
Mhm.
That passed in Hyderabad. It was not in Karachi.
Yeah, at that point, Hyderabad was capital of Sindh. I mean, that's a whole other.
Like you mentioned correctly, more like a small fishing town, a military outpost for British,
Yeah,
where
right.
it was not that Sindhi culture. Sindhi culture stopped at Hyderabad.
It was a cosmopolitan port
Yeah,
city.
so if you see pictures of some of the senior leaders of Sindh, none of them you would find wearing any Sindhi clothing. None of
What
them
is
are,
now considered Sindhi clothing,
yeah,
right?
they're wearing suits and ties like your father and my father was wearing. So which culture we are talking about?
Right. No, but
Just
Sid, I want to take the story forward from there, right? The point was why people ask, and I've had arguments even with sort of young intellectuals in Pakistan say, why didn't you guys learn Sindhi and why didn't you get absorbed? There was nothing to get absorbed in. And I don't mean this as a negative thing.
no,
I mean,
no, no. One second. Karachi till
that's what I'm
1960.
saying.
Karachi till 1968 was not part of Sindh actually. We were
It
a
was federal capital territory.
and why father should have learned Sindhi? Why? In
No, no,
68
it's not even why. See, it's not even about why. It's a matter of practical knowledge. If I spent 10 years living in Karachi,
and I'm
I
speaking
had
Punjabi.
no opportunity to learn or be a part of Sindhi intellectual
No,
exchange.
all languages, see, for me, after my mother language Urdu, all languages are important for me. I should learn Sindhi as
Right.
well, but I should learn Punjabi, Pashto, and Balochi as well, right?
Right.
It's like speaking Punjabi more than Sindhi. I know Sindhi as well, but the point is that till 68, till my father was a very fluent speaker of Sindhi. But what achieved for him? What achieved for him? Though he was a fluent speaker of Sindhi, he used to act like a Sindhi, he used to talk like a Sindhi, he used to walk like a Sindhi. But when it came to the fact, he was treated like a Muhajir, right? And my father
Yeah.
was a member of NSF, National Student Federation. He was
Which was in the 60s and 50s, the left,
yeah,
actually Marxist student organization,
yeah.
right?
And my father was a student leader in NSF. My father was a Bhutto security guard when he used to come into Karachi. So my family was originally People's Party. But what did we get out of it? We were always seen as a Muhajir in Sindh. So it's not that we didn't try to embrace the culture. My forefathers tried to,
Yes.
but they accepted. And then I
Yeah.
decided that what mistake my parents did, I would not do. So I know Sindhi, I can understand Sindhi, but I can speak. I love to speak Punjabi more than Sindhi. Why? Because Punjabi is serving my language equally. So if you see top poets right now are coming from
Hmm?
Punjab, so I try to reciprocate them. Simple.
And I want to move on to that. To me, as I was saying, my own story also was that I grew up abroad, 0 to 14, moved back to Pakistan and started 11th grade. And we had already had this experience. And my father was always, self-consciously Muhajir. The word Muhajir was thrown around our household without any idea. And, there was that feeling of a lot of people, look at it as the word Muhajir being imposed on us. For us, it was organic. It is who we are as Pakistanis. I always love to say that, all the other ethnic groups are ethnic groups and would be whatever they are, whether Pakistan existed or not.
Before we call
Our
ourselves,
existence,
before
our
we call
existence is conditional on the existence of Pakistan. So being Muhajir, by definition, we are very Pakistani, right?
for being calling ourselves Mahajirs, they were calling us Hindustani, right?
Right. And
Which
that
is
is what doesn't get
like
discussed anymore.
because my forefathers left Hindustan and joined Pakistan.
Right.
So
And
why are they calling me Hindustani?
Hindustan, India is another, and that's what I'm saying. We lived in a very small town in West Africa where, as long as we were the only Pakistani family in town, we were the Pakistanis. And the moment this other family came in, they started referring to us as Hindustanis.
Even
That
today,
was something.
some of them would refer to you as Hindustani.
Right. Although the word has gone
So
slightly out of use, and also in the southern part of the country, the word was Hindustani. In Lahore, often the word Urdu speaking comes up, or Urdu, or some stuff like that,
why
which
would
is
they call
also
it?
cool.
So when they decided to call him Hindustani, I said, you know what? I have
Exactly.
Pakistan. You're not calling me Pakistani. You're calling me Hindustani. So I would rather call myself Mahajir because I don't want to be
Exactly. See, that is where the pride comes in. It's like I'm happy to be associated with a word that identifies me as Pakistani. That is also, if I may dare say and give that, Islami touch, as we say in Pakistan, it is a word the Prophet was proud to be associated with. So why should I not like the word? Number one. Then the question comes: why are you still Muhajir 2 generations in? And my answer to that, and again, that is where I was making that distinction of people who settled in other parts of the country outside Sindh. I mean, in Sindh, we have other cities as well. They got absorbed in there and they're from Lahore or they're whatever. For us, Muhajir became our own identity, culturally speaking, politically speaking, eventually politically speaking, right? And then we talk about, and also I wanted to dredge up this little bit of history, which has come up recently, but I heard about it growing up, that in the 50s or 60s, after the federal capital territory thing was happening, or during that period, there was some young people on the edges, young people and their leaders, who started what they call the Karachi Suba Tehreek, about making Karachi a separate province. There was, my father had an uncle, just, as we say in Pakistan, not a blood relative, but someone from the community that was related to us by marriage and all, who was a leader in that movement, right? Mahmudullah Usmani Saab. And he himself, he was, those flyers that are now sometimes dug out in history of the Karachi Suba Tehreek have his name on it. So we growing up knew, some of us were comfortable with the word Muhajir, identified that way, knew the history of the Karachi Suba Tehreek. And then that went away for a while. And then in the late 70s, a group of young middle class, lower middle class students at Karachi University revived this idea. And I am not from that generation, I'm half a generation behind that. But when I came in and started, even when I started engineering school a little before you, on our campus, NED University, the large engineering school in Karachi, the APMSO, the Muhajir Students Organization, was a very small entity. Then came this election where the MQM got to participate in an electoral battle, right? 86, 88. 88 particularly, suddenly the MQM kind of took over leadership of the Muhajir community, and initially was called the Muhajir Qawmi movement, the Muhajir
So
National movement.
it was not sudden. There were incidents preceding it which
Right.
caused that.
That
So
triggered it. The Bushra
there was
Zaidi incident,
Trust Valley, there was Bushra Zedi case, there was the Surab Gord incident, right?
right?
I remember. I tell you a true story. So my father was a government officer, okay, and I was actually born in Paposh, proudly, okay, and
Paanch
so
number.
we then shifted to north, and so we used to go and still see my dada over there, who lives in Our grandfather, who used to live still in Paposh. And if you have been to Paposh, there's a big roundabout there where used to be a big Habib Bank branch over there once upon a time.
Mm.
Still, so I remember it was one night, things were simmering, and our car got blocked by one rickshaw driver who was from another community. And what happened at that time? My father had an argument with that person, and 20 of those guys from the same community gathered around us without caring the fact that there are women. My sister was in the car, my mother was in the car, and I was in the car. Luckily, my father, because he was a government officer and he used to work with intelligence as well, he had a pistol. He had a licensed pistol. He pulled it out, and then he did a aerial firing, and then those guys had to leave. Now,
Back.
sadly, my father sat in the car. First thing he said to me and to my mother, I still remember that statement, that I saw that there were my community, other two guys were standing over there. They did not at the
Did not do a thing.
up and look at them. 10 of them, 20 of them gathered to support one guy who was in a mistake in the first. I think these kind of incidents and the realization where you do not get justice in Kasba Aligarh's case, did not get justice in so many cases,
Right.
which is the fact. So it's not that it was sudden; it brewed, and luckily, when it brewed, the APMSO, which was formed in 1978, became a party in 1984. Till that time, the fodder came from the fact that people were suffering, people were not being given the rights, and the platform was there, the vacuum was there, and it triggered. If you
It's
remember,
right.
Salim Haider started before Altaf Hussain, but Salim Haider could not appeal to the masses the way Altaf did, and then you saw that, or not only Altaf. See, Altaf is
It wasn't just Altaf, right? There was a whole team of intellectuals.
was a lot of other people who made it, and then MQM
Mhm.
filled the gap, and then you saw MQM replacing the gap, and then MQM did some counter action to fight back for Muhajirs, and that's the story where the story began.
That's where
So
the
it
story.
was
But just to complete the background story, I wanted to lay out my story, right? So one was that story of living abroad and being identified a certain way. And then when I came back to Pakistan in 11th grade, we all joined the National Cadet Corps, right? Uh, I hope you can hear me. Your video's gone, but
yes, I
I
do,
hope
I
your
do.
audio is still there. Anyway, so at the National Cadet Corps, we'd be standing around with our instructors from the army, and the question, informally, and this is a ranker, a private in the army or something, and his question, just going back and forth and having a conversation, there was that question we all faced, which still comes up, and it comes up in India as well. कि तुसी पिछों दे किथे दे हो, right? Where are you from? What's your background, right? And to that, I came up and formulated an answer that I still use to this day. Which someone asked me that, I was like, my father was Joint Secretary, Lucknow District, for the All
Hmm.
Muslim League. Now you tell me where I'm from and what I am, right? That
Hmm.
that is how I came along with that, right? I came up with that answer at the age of, again, I was 14. I was just fresh off the board, very nerdy, very geeky kid, right? And again, And then you would see, like you said about that firing incident, when I moved back, my father was one of those people who used to make us use public transport, right? Even though we came back from abroad and could most probably could afford more. And on a bus, you could see this young, barely out of a teens bus conductor who would treat the locals with disdain, with disrespect. They would, misbehave with elders, which in our communities is actually worse than it is in other communities, right? And yet no one would stand up for them. And literally, that's what I'm saying about 1988, when the MQM, started feeling its oats and became a dominant political party. Actually, 84, 85, we would see these chalkings in the buses. But by 87, 88, the moment a bus conductor misbehaved, and to this day, and maybe a little less now because we're again in that trough of identity, people would actually stand up and start pushing back. And for all its shenanigans and misbehaviors, and I know you are also someone who says that all the hundagardi, so to speak, that happened around the movement, this feeling of identity, self-confidence, like you said, there was a vacuum of that in Karachi. And
A
the
lot
moment
of
the
the
election
lot
came
of the
up, it's, all its positive and negative features, that is what it gave the people of Karachi. And that is why, and let's get more to like current politics now. That is why, because we're already about 40 minutes in, 2 days ago, without Altaf Hussain, when there was a big rally in Karachi with a lot of these factions, I use a metaphor that I know you've heard me say, that Karachi has always been misbehaved, and even throughout Pakistan. And this is where we get beyond the Muhajir experience. There was a big, large boot that stamped on Karachi and has done it repeatedly. When the MQM became so strong, they stamped the boot, and there was, it's like a boot stamping a puddle, and these little puddles formed around that just were of no use suddenly, because now the boot is backing off throughout Pakistan, not just Karachi. We have these sympathies, and I want to talk to you about that as well. Now that the boot is gone and these puddles are coming back, suddenly a huge turnout turns up for this rally and this. And outside of the politics, how do you see the current situation in terms of identity, understanding? Because what I have seen in the last 2 3 years is that the next generation understands, and now actually there is an understanding, especially after Imran Khan has shaken things up. There is an understanding in even District 1, north of the Punjab, GT Road sector, of how the establishment has basically deprived the whole country of its due rights and resources. That understanding is there in even Karachi's youth, but they have misgivings, because we are now about almost 3 generations into the MQM experience. The and I can see this at the breakfast table in Karachi, right? The older generation are people who still are wistful, they think a certain way. The younger ones, more self-confident and acutely aware of the issues and deprivations of their experience, yet they have huge misgivings about the whole MQM experience, right? And they don't even argue about the word Muhajir anymore. Other people sometimes do, especially people who live in other parts of the country. So where do you see this new revival happening? Is the new generation, how are they coming into this experience of who they are, who their representatives are, and what is going on right now?
See, unfortunately, the problem with the word Majir was that it was associated with people like our former leader Altaf. And
It
Samad Bhai,
became associated.
hmm,
It became associated with a certain
became
kind of politics.
problem is that the educated masses of Muhajirs, people like probably living on the other side of the bridge, which were more influential, more controllable, more have more money, more influence, they did not want to associate with that person. And what happened that word then been seen that, oh, if you are a Majir, so your leader is Altaf Hussain. Oh, if you're a Majir, your leader is Afaq.
Mm.
And that is what distributed people away from the word Majir, because they say if we support Majir cause, we may need to end up supporting someone like Altaf or maybe someone like Afaq. Both of them were seen as mafias. The problem was that if you had educated people with refined background leading this cause, like you see Mustafa Bhai coming and filling that gap, then you will be able to attract back those cadres who have left the way, left the pad. Now keep one thing in mind, that deprivation has not ended. The reason why people, the youngsters you're talking about, are more attracted to PTI because right now, today,
Are
P-
they?
no, I'm just trying to make an argument. I'm just trying to
Okay.
make it that in some cases they are trying to get attracted towards it because Iran is saying all the right things because of people right now. That, but what people are not realizing, I wrote an article in 2012 in the news that PTI is seriously overrated, and I got a call from the editor from the news in Dubai that I got about 20,000 abuses on that article. 20,000 abuses in 2012, and at that time,
Before
I,
there was social media.
yeah, and at that time I predicted that PTI was a fan club, and Imran Khan is the blame, and he's the way he's running things, he will run everything now, right? Now today, Imran may be saying some of those right things, but earlier he was on the other side of the fence, and like I said, when in 2016 I was writing articles to condemn pro-Taliban policies of Pakistan Army. I was writing articles to condemn CPAC. I was writing articles to condemn operations against bloats or Muhajirs. These people were celebrating when I was being pushed out of my office. And at that time, I had an opportunity to write an apology and save my job and save my, not the job, at least the job was gone. At least continue living in Pakistan. But I didn't do that. Now, these people, I'm happy, now can understand the pain which we all had to go through at that time. It's not easy to leave behind and on a 14 days notice or 10 days notice to leave the country, not knowing if you would ever be able to allow to come back. So, but we took that step and we told them, I was telling the HR head of the company who was telling me to resign because there was a complaint against me by a very prominent PTI guy who was a friend of one of the person who is a minister in SM today, that I am doing this for your posterity and you are doing to me, no worries, my Allah will side with me. And Sabahat Bhai, this is a lesson. When you stand with the truth, Allah helps you. When I left Pakistan, dirham was 24 rupees. Today it is 76 rupees. Alhamdulillah, my income levels have gone up in comparison to Pakistan. So this is what I'm trying to say. That at the end of the day, when people will have the right leadership, who have astute character, leading people who are of Muhajir youth, and they will see that there is hope. These people will not sell them short. These people will not make them criminals. They will not treat them as mafias. I am very confident that people would get attracted back to the cause because the way things are going, the deprivation has not ended. The way it is going, they will be more enslaved. How many of them will be able to leave the country and go abroad? You know, things are not that good as well abroad as well. So the day that realization happens, they should be comfortable that there is leadership available. 3 years ago, there was no leadership. Mustafa Bhai was running in one direction, Danish Kazi was running in one direction, Farooq Bhai was running in direction, Khalid Bhai was running in one direction. And you know, we have had interviews in the past
We've
on
talked.
unity factor. You know, remember those sessions. And I've been always telling you that this will happen. Just be patient, this will happen, but it will has to happen the right way. And this has happened.
It is
They,
happening.
they have to believe in us. We have
Achha,
made it, we have made it
just,
happen.
just to
We were,
fill in the blanks, and we're getting a little long, and I wanted to first of all, you keep mentioning Mustafa Bhai, and for non-Urdu audiences or non-South Asian accent audiences, the word Bhai means brother, and it's
not
sort of a
a brother. So to be honest,
shorthand, and it's been used not just by people in the Muhajir community, but famously our Islamist
so
brothers in the Jamaat also use it.
to tell your Western audiences, he was the number one mayor in the world in
Right.
2000.
Mustafa Kamal is a very well-regarded mayor. He was on the MQM platform. He became mayor of Karachi. As they say, in Karachi's 125-year history or something as a municipal corporation, there are four people that are mentioned as amazing mayors. One was a pre-independence. I don't use the word partition for that kind of context. A pre-independence gentleman. I think it was a Parsi from the Kawasji family or someone. Then there was advocate Nematullah, as they call him, the lawyer from the Jamaat Islami, who did a very decent job. And then there are two MQM mayors that are very well regarded. The other one doesn't get mentioned as much because he's gone on to do other things. Farooq Sattar bhai.
Mhm.
Uh, Farooq Sattar, when he was about the youngest mayor Karachi had, and he was this hotshot young kid. He went on to become senior minister in the Sindh government, and is now one of the last from the founding team of the MQM that is still involved with the current efforts to bring the band back together, as I like to put it. So now that the band is back together, uh, you are predicting that there will be improvements and things will move forward very quickly, because I do want to get into some numbers and all. Very quickly, do you see now that Pakistan is headed for some sort of elections, or maybe two bouts of elections in the next few years, or people say something else might happen? Do you see the MQM making that much? This MQM, which now officially is known as the MQM Pakistan, and it's called the Muttahida Qawmi Movement, the
No,
United.
it's only one MQ.
United
Why they still calling them Muslim or the MQ Pakistan? The
no,
after the
okay. So, what was till a few days ago the MQM Pakistan, and also to give our audience their idea, there was a court case in the United Kingdom about some assets that were owned by an entity called the MQM, which
about the assets, it was also about the ownership of the party.
I know
That
the point. Yeah, the identity and entity, but that. See, again, that was something that happened in the UK. It is a marker. It is legal validation.
legally, UK's judgments are admissible in Pakistani courts, and I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example.
Good
There
point.
was an application being floated in the Supreme Court in Islamabad by a certain gentleman who was trying to get the national identity card for Altaf Hussain. Because after
Hmm.
you go into asylum, you burn down your nationality. You the
Right.
only way to get your ID is if the parliament allows you to do that.
After
And
asylum, if you take a second citizenship, then you're eligible for an ICOP, right?
so, yeah, no, if you have back from asylum, you cannot still get because
Not
your
from
national
asylum, right? Not from
yeah,
asylum. Once you take asylum,
because you have denounced your nationality. So the judge instead asked this question from the gentleman at which MQM you belong to. So he said MQM London. So the judge said, "What is this MQM London?" Right? As per the judgment, there is only one MQM, which is MQM in Pakistan. So as he was about to dismiss the application, the petitioner's lawyer withdrew the application because he knew that if the application is dismissed on these grounds, he will not be able to again petition on the same grounds again legally. So it's not that simple. Judgments in England, as per treaty, are admissible in Pakistan.
no, I understand that, but my point is there's also an understanding, right?
Divorce in England, you can use the same judgment and you can
Yeah.
get
See,
a
marriages are a special issue, but you're right. I mean, besides, I want to get beyond just the legal situation, right? Now, as you said, there is now a legal precedent, and withdrawing that application in the Pakistani Supreme Court might also have been, and I think that's what you meant, because then that would have been a Pakistani Supreme Court saying that the
no.
only.
The law says once an application is dismissed,
Mhm.
that too at the Supreme Court. Because Supreme Court is a last
Right.
level. On the same pretext, you cannot file a new petition.
No, no, but I'm going beyond that. I'm also going to the fact that if there was a legal decision in that withdrawal that said that there is only one MQM, then that would have become established in Pakistani law, and that would have implications for electoral
That's
offices
what I'm
and all of that.
trying to tell you. The judge, in his statement before he dismissed the application, has already made the statement, and
Good.
that is part of the record already. That's what
Right.
I'm trying.
And now we have the thing is in the last few months, there is the economic issue of the assets in the Britain. Then there is legal validation from a British court that says no, we don't. This should belong to the main entity, which is the larger organization, which is the political party in Pakistan, right? And so we still there is a
It was
transitionary phase where I would say let's be patient with the word MQMP coming up once in a while.
one correction, because I know people will hear this and then they will try to extract this. See, I tell you one thing. It is not that MQM has been given this judgment because they were the larger party or they were the party on the ground. It is on
Right.
a ground that Mr. Hussain resigned from the party
Right.
and the new constitution came in, which
Hmm.
him from that. Because he himself resigned from the party, he surrendered his rights.
Yeah. Sanders
So
is right.
it
So
was
and he's no longer an office holder of the party. I
the
mean,
only way
yeah.
he could get the system is that if the party induct him again in the system. But
Right.
now with mashallah say new faces in MQM coming in, people like Mustafa Kamal Bhai, Anis Bhai, I think that window to come back into MQM is gone. I can very clearly.
No, that's fine. My point is, and I'm not making a might is right argument. Oh, just because the numbers would. There is now a legal precedent established in a legal, yeah, you said procedural way, saying this was the entity, this guy resigned, this has happened, so this should legally be owned by by this organization, right? So there is that. But in conclusion, and we're getting to the end, and there's so much to unpack, and I'm realizing that we're having this conversation, even given my efforts to unpack this for a non-Pakistani or even non-Karachiite audience, there is so much else to mine, and I look forward to people, in engaging with us on your. By the way, your Twitter handle is at Danish
Straight,
Kazi.
straight from DK. Straight from DK.
Right, at straight from DK,
Yeah.
and the letter D, the letter K. So
Yeah.
we need to have this discussion, and part of this whole series of this 3.5 plus series is to try to get to where we are. We have these discussions in a wider scale, right? So that our friends, your friends in the UAE, mine in the US, and across the world, kind of understand why we still use these words, what what our point of view is. We are not a hate based, at least you and I are not. Like you said, we grew up dancing to Punjabi music, speaking Punjabi. My Punjabi has actually improved since I moved away from Pakistan, also because with age you learn more. And it's not about, and that's why we have this 3.5 plus thing. We do understand that half or more of the Punjab is as much a victim of our establishment, elite capture system in Pakistan as we are. But circumstances vary. We have our own experience. We have an experience out of Karachi. We identify as Muhajir. Not everyone does. My argument or thesis here is that the word Muhajir is now a ethno socio-political identity, which we have, wherever we live, right?
And
Who
Hajar
are you?
culture,
Where do you come from? This is
it
our,
was
and we are Urdu speakers. We are also part of that Awadhi and other cultural background, right? You can be German and live in Austria. You can be Irish and live in Boston, right? But there is an identity now which is formed over 3 generations. So my question to you is, how many, how large is this community? I mean, within Karachi or urban Sindh and beyond in the diaspora, how large is this community? How large is the diaspora? I know you will have done some thinking about this.
I think it should not be less than 75 million all across Pakistan.
See,
See, let's
I'm
take
not talking about people who are descendants
no,
of
I'll
people who
tell
came over. No,
you,
because
I'll tell
by your definition, you're talking about even people like Imran Khan and Ziaul Haq,
you. No,
right?
the question is who is a Majar? We
Who
think
identifies as a Muhajir. See, the other thing is, and let me say something else, please. The thing is, when people say, why you shouldn't call yourself Muhajir, you're not a Muhajir. The point is, if someone self-identifies as Muhajir, then no one else has the right. I mean, would you tell an African American not to call themselves an African American?
I'll tell you this misconception. When MKM was going through turmoil, we used to hear that people don't want us to lose the word Majar. Okay. To be honest, I don't know whoever they were accusing. I had many meetings with them. I was never told to not to call myself a Majar. I'll be on the record
Right.
saying that. Okay. And
Right.
I'm not about junior level. Huh? I'm talking about senior level. I'm talking 3 star maybe or 2 stars. Okay. Let's kill the debate. It's all BS.
Right.
Today it is. I'll tell you one thing very sad, that when we did the first Mahajar Culture Day 3 years ago, one of the very prominent Mahajar leader accused people like us for working for an agency in Pakistan doing Mahajar Cultural Day, though it was his responsibility to do it. And when there was a fight in the Korangi factory after that, I got a call from a very senior leader. Now, are you happy that this fight has happened? So you understand. Someday we'll have a session on that as well.
We
But
should.
yeah, I tell you, I have very first-hand stories on that. See, one thing in exile is you learn a lot actually, and I'm also trying to write a book on this as well. But the fact of the matter is, Sabad Bhai, is that when everyone is proud to be associated with their own system, like in Punjab, there are bradaries, there are tribes, there are chimas, chattas, arains, awans. In Pathans, there are different tribes. Why am I not? Why should I be ashamed of calling myself a tribe? Because my family, when we came to Pakistan, we did not came with an agreement that we would become a Sindhi, Punjabi, Baloch, Pathan. We are not. I don't want to be known as that. I'm proud of my heritage. My family was serving Nizam's court. I want to be associated like that. It's not because it's a matter of superiority, but that is my culture. It is my DNA, right? So I cannot be forced to be called something which I am not. My contract was to be called a Pakistani, which I proudly call myself as. But that's it. I cannot be. So if any, I need to be. If since I'm not able to get associated with all of these things, Sabad bhai, instead of calling us Bombay wala, Delhi wala, Falam wala, Dhamaka wala, the word Muhajir encompasses everyone. And I'm telling you this from the horse's mouth. People we accuse that they don't know Muhajir. You know what? They told me in one session when we were having coffee in Dubai that we are happy. Otherwise, we would have to deal with 30 communities within Muhajirs. And as you would see today, now there's Memon community standing up, Gujarati separately standing up. Mahajir word was controlling everyone right now. One more mistake which we do, we say that Mahajirs are only from people who came from UP, Bihar, and CP. Anyone who migrated from India, anyone who migrated from India is a Mahajir. Even
So
today,
that is again, that is
no,
where I'm going with this. Yes, they are Mohajirs by definition, but my point is, how large is this community that
I told you
identifies
75 million people in Pakistan.
25
Easily.
million in Pakistan, and
70 to 75.
do 70-75 million people identify as that, right? Because we are pretty much a little more than half of Karachi.
I tell you, the people in Punjab are not identifying themselves. But
That's my point.
Look at Shabazz Gill. He's complained twice that he's been treated like this because he is a Mahajir.
Actually,
Rana,
he said middle class, didn't he?
no, he's on record saying that his family is migrated from India.
He
Okay.
said, on record, Imran Khan was on the record, Ziaul Haq was on the record as saying his family came from
No,
India.
so
What is
Ziaulak
now
is
India?
interesting part. Ziaulak was a Mahajir. Your current army chief is a Mahajir. Your current joint chief is a Mahajir. Okay, your current president is a Mahajir, right? So
The
it's not
president, though, he's a hardcore Karachiite. No, that's
that, but even he doesn't declare himself as a Mahajir. He
yeah,
calls
no,
himself,
and that's the point. No, so
yes,
that's the distinction I'm trying to make, and I know I'm badgering you.
because
There is people who are Muhajir and the people who identify as Muhajir.
they don't declare because the word Mahajir was associated with Altaf Hussain.
I know, yeah, I think it's a little deeper than that, but let's not argue about it.
The day that association is totally removed, the day it gets represented by Sabhat or Nadeem Rizvi or Mustafa Kamal or X or Y or Z, I don't think anyone will have a trouble associating
I
themselves.
disagree with you on that, but let's move on. I think it's deeper because I have a few years over you, and I've hung out with people beyond that, and there is so much to talk about. And again, you also used another word I wanted to unpack right now. You mentioned CP. You said CP, which for our Indian audience and other people is the region today in India known as Madhya Pradesh, MP.
Madhya
We
Pradesh.
still our communities, because when they migrated, it was still called the central provinces of the British Empire, British Indian Empire. We call it CP. UP had the good fortune of keeping its initials, which went from United Provinces to Uttar Pradesh. But that will happen. We still have these communities. Danish bhai, it has been wonderful. There's still 5 things I want to talk to you about, but hopefully this we needed to get some of this stuff on the table and go beyond that. I know a lot of my friends, even in the US, non-South Asian friends or South Asian friends or Indians, often have this, uh, you know, they look at it askance, right? What's this word? Where is it coming from? Why are you still this? Why you call that? And again, we've done a lot of venting today. I think,
Fortunate. Our whole leadership has been living abroad for the last 30, 40 years. They've been living in America, they were living in London.
and the
And
UAE.
when I went to a congressional library in Washington, I couldn't find a single book classifying as a community, which is a sad part. Not a single
Right. So
book.
that will come with time. See, Danish bhai, another thing that happened to me as a youth, right? I was a maybe 12-year-old sitting in a small school library in West Africa, right? Nigeria. I grew up in northern Nigeria. And I ran into this encyclopedia as a book. If you go to libraries a lot, find it. It's called The Peoples of the World. And so
Yeah.
they have chapters in different communities, right? The Norwegians, also communities, not countries, right? Germanic people, Punjabis, Sindhis, Malay, this, that, and the other. And I'm like going back and forth. It's like,
But
where do I fit? The funny thing is that book has a chapter that was titled even back then, and I'm talking early 80s, right? That had a chapter that said Urdu speaking peoples of North India and Pakistan. And from that day, that has become my understanding of who I am, ethnically speaking. However, and I agree with you, and I'm an advocate of this, that the people of Karachi and the Muhajirs in Pakistan, generally speaking, of Pakistan, have over 3 generations now, 3, 4 generations, evolved into a community. A community forms over generations, and then self-identity is very, very important. Like I said, you don't ask the Kennedys to stop calling themselves Irish Americans, right? The word Muhajir to us means that, is that kind of identity. That's
Kamal,
where we're coming from.
isn't it better to your friends that, like you gave a very excellent example, that Biden celebrates Irish roots, or Kennedy's celebrated their Irish roots, or Clinton's celebrated their Irish root. But see, Ireland and Americans are not at a war, so they
No,
can proud of that. But
that's
imagine,
another thing.
imagine if I start calling myself in Pakistan that I'm a Hindustani.
Yeah. No,
Imagine
no, actually, there was a little
that
movement in the middle.
I would get, without even calling myself a Hindustani, I had to face a state oppression against me, just for the notion that there was something there which never got proved, and we lost thousands of boys and friends in that. Imagine if I start calling myself Hindustani, then you will accuse me of treachery. So rather,
No,
let's
no.
call
See,
myself,
no,
and
and
I'm
there was a
yeah,
move in the middle. I know we're going over an hour now, but what the heck? There was a move in the middle by some people to start calling themselves Indian Pakistanis. Like you say Irish American, or African American. And that to me is actually anathema, because India is a republic. Our ancestors were never part of that republic. We came in the British Indian Empire. You will see my social media handle now says I am Awadhi by culture. My culture comes from Awadh, from a region, just like German Americans or Irish Americans or people in other places have a culture. I am from that culture. As a citizen, I am a dual citizen of the US and Pakistan.
would it ever be Rajasthani culture?
Rajasthan, see, Awadh was a kingdom. It was one of the successor kingdoms of the Mughal Empire. And Awadh was a region, in fact, not even all of UP, because UP was united provinces of Agra and Awadh.
Hmm.
So the western part of UP, what is now in India known as Western UP, like you said, your mom's from a Jat family. That
My
Western
nani
UP,
was Jat, my nana was Yusuf.
your family, right? So Western UP and then into Rajasthan, there is the Jat community.
Yes.
Awadh was a kingdom. It is basically now the middle of UP, right? On eastern UP itself is slightly different, right? It goes into Bihar and other kingdoms. They were historically part of either the Bengali kingdom or Bihar was itself. So Awadh is a certain culture. It is actually what we call the Kasbati culture of UP, right? The big cities. There was a culture formed, but the community has moved on. We are now in Karachi, in England, in the US. We have a culture. And like you said, politically and socio-politically, we are, sorry, my something's ringing. We are Muhajirs. Muhajir is this, within, we break it down. You say, I'm a human being. I'm in the community of human beings. I'm a Pakistani American. Within the Pakistani context, I'm a Muhajir, right? Just like
I
other
will
people.
try to conclude this with this small statement. After 2016,
Six,
recently,
16.
yeah, after the operation, Altaf's speech, we were told by some people very harshly to denounce the word Majid. Do you really think that if they really wanted to kill the word, they could not have done it? Today, proudly, in the rallies of MKM, you are saying G. Majid again, right? So, do you think it is possible if the state doesn't want, you will be allowed to do that? No, you won't be. State has no problem with the word of Majid. The problem is who is controlling the word for what nefarious intent. That's the problem.
No, but see that's why we are having discussions like this, to take the word outside the political context. I keep saying political community, but it's also a socio-economic And
No, it's
that's
political.
acronym now, right?
It is a political community. Sabad bhai, see,
It is a political community,
not
I
for the
understand, but we
not
need to get beyond that. We need to have the community and the identity have a more organic
true.
identity. So, like you said, so the children that come, the people that come behind us have an understanding of who they are. And Muhajirs can be represented. The funny thing is, in the history of Pakistan, Karachi and the Muhajirs have been represented by the Jamaat Islami for a long period. Then there was the MQM, and now the PTI has made a dent. They have a small contingent of people who support the PTI, and then there are people who are apolitical. I can name intellectuals living in Lahore, in Islamabad, and all, who have the argument. They will make the political and social arguments. And of course, the bigger argument is you need Karachi at peace, you need Muhajirs to flourish for Pakistan to flourish, because we have been a major contributor to the social, economic, intellectual life of the country in the formative phases of the country's life. And we have a contribution to make, not in exclusion to or as a counter to other cultures, but so that we can bring our contribution to the table, to the national table, to the international table, right? We own a large part of world culture. I mean, our poets, Urdu poets, half of them are from Karachi. There is, of course, there's still very good poets in India, and historically,
Let
regions
me
that are now in the Republic of India owned.
all the upcoming lot of Urdu poetry is from Punjab.
I know, I agree.
Only one Urdu poet which is prominent, and all the names you hear are Punjabis. The
That is okay.
Amreen Baji, who's my cousin as well. She's probably the from a Hyderabadi side of my family. She is the only prominent Urdu poet right now.
See, no,
So,
no, but see, again, that's the other thing. You have Rais Warsi,
up,
who's now based in the UK, and
no, no,
and we have.
saying based out of Pakistan, the way Urdu poets are coming out, the new poets, the new lot. If you attend any mushara, I do attend a lot of musharas. I like to hear poetry. I try to write as well. Funny part is that most of them are coming from Punjab, right? So
And
Punjab,
but here, Danish bhai, that's kind of my point. And this is, I think you're contradicting yourself. Some of those people coming out of Punjab are of Muhajir stock. I mean,
yes,
right? But they are, like you said, they're coming from Punjab, and that's a good thing. It is good to see Urdu flourish
yes,
in many
yes,
places. In fact, in India,
yes,
I have been tracking a revival of the Urdu language, which started
yes,
in the communities of Hyderabad and Delhi. Right?
yes,
Delhi now has the largest cultural festival related to Urdu anywhere in the world. And in fact, it is the largest cultural festival of India.
yes.
Rekhta now, and
Festival,
it happens. So Urdu has its roots and that's the other thing. But the people of Karachi, the Muhajir, especially of Karachi and urban Sindh, have a contribution to make. If you drain that space, and that's my complaint nowadays, of any cultural influence, you are depriving Pakistan, you're depriving South Asia, you're depriving the world of a source of very important intellectual and cultural contribution. That's my complaint. That's kind of why I'm also having this discussion. That's what I mean when I say this is beyond politics, right?
yes, true. Agree,
And as I
agree.
was saying to you off air, up to the 90s, Karachi had a much more central role in the national, intellectual, and social life of Pakistan than it does today, which is a loss for Pakistan. It is good to see Lahore grow and develop and have universities and people coming out and intellectuals, and
Nothing wrong in that. I would also
it's
want,
not wrong. It's a good thing.
yes, I would also want Larkana to flourish. I also want
Exactly.
Thakkar to flourish because that will reduce pressure on my city. I'll be happy with
Right.
that.
And that's the
And
other thing.
different
Karachi is the magnet.
that leaders are like parasites who are not developing their own places and just every time they come to Karachi and they have one solution to it. But I'll be happy. You see, Faisalabad grew. It's good.
It's
It's good.
become quite
But that's an ironic question for the representation of Sindh. That like Punjab has Faisalabad now, Multan, Sialkot, Lahore. They can boast there are 4 or 5 cities in Punjab right now. What Sindh has?
right.
Karachi,
No, and that's
yeah.
so.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
Anyway, so having made that kind of passionate discussion that we are having, I think we should call it a day here. We are way over an hour, and
yeah,
with you and me.
office day tomorrow as well, so I
Right.
have to.
Discussions are discussions, conversations are conversations. Folks, I'm going to take Danish Bhai off the screen. Danish Bhai, thank you very much for your time. And I know, we don't always agree on political issues and social approaches and all of that. But the idea on this series, 3.5 plus, is to get different voices on the table. And I know a lot of things you have said, even I have said, will be unsettling to a lot of people. And
See,
some of my own friends will say, "Are you that ethnic? Are you such a nationalist? Are you
don't
such
be.
an
Yeah,
nationalist?"
I'll tell you. Uh, I'm now at a stage where someone says that, "Do you have a problem? Take a walk." But I'm not going to change my identity. Simple.
The
That,
identity is not there, and
yeah.
we are happy to discuss
Proud.
these things.
I call out to all the Mahajers outside the world, in the world, who may be calling themselves or not calling themselves. Please understand, this world is a communal world. People are national. The world is turning towards nationalism. Don't be afraid of identifying your nationalist identity, which is Mahajism. That's one. And number two, nothing is lost. Yes, we had a bad time. We got pulled on by the poor leadership, but there are still a lot of educated Mahajirs out there who can continue the legacy and can still drive the ship ahead. So all is not lost. Just trust. People like Mustafa Kamal have, and maybe people like us or people like Rajneesh Bhai, has brought out Mahajirs from the grat. People like Farooq Sattar, people like Khalid. When people are thinking this, that this community is gone, this party is gone, we pulled it out from there. Inshallah, we will take it further, and you will be proud of us because to associate with us and proudly call yourself Mahajirs as well. Thank you.
Chalo Danish bhai, thank you very much. We will now take it from there. Folks, you heard this. I actually forgot that I have this background here. Just as an introduction to some people, we have this map in the background which is titled Iran and Turan, which is one of our cultural in the Persianate world. There is that idea of Iran being central to it, and then the rest of the world. So I just found this wonderful, and I think copyright free map on the internet. I use it as a background. But you heard Danish Kazi, you heard me, steep and sort of lean into my own ethno-political social identity. Please don't take it as exclusivist or negative. This is an attempt to have these voices come out and discuss things that don't get discussed. Often we talk about the idea of victors write history, and the dominant narratives, and all of that. We are making an effort to bring out voices from beyond District 1, and this was one of those. You had a discussion with Aslam Kakar and Pakhtun perspective, but the perspective of an intellectual studying South Asia from that perspective, South Asia and beyond. I mean, Aslam Kakar studies the Kurdish experience as well. So hopefully, give us feedback. Keep listening. We will follow up with more interesting conversations. I was actually taking notes, and I do apologize for how much there is to unpack on these topics. And if you don't understand a concept, a topic, terminology, please, reach out to me at iFaqir on any of these platforms, or beyond that to any of our guests. And we will take it from there. See you next time. And vaya con Dios.